Yes, Dr. Naomi works as an assistant professor of gender studies at Asian University for Women, located in Bangladesh, and aims to empower women from 19 different countries of Asia. Naomi has completed PhD from Morat University, Australia. The title of her PhD is Tibetan uh, Buddhism and Feminism in an in between space, a creative critical autoethnography in non-Western women voices. In 2010, she received Australian Leadership Award 2010 to pursue Masters of Arts in Human Rights from Curtin University, Australia. She has received Climate Cornell Online Fellowship and Demographic Health Survey Fellowship by US-aided in 2019, and she is published on Herdao Ethnography, Rohingya Refugees, and Human Rights, Legal Aids, Humanitarian Laws, and Health and Public Issue. And she's a versatile person to you.
Thank you so much for such a nice introduction. I'm really feeling very uplifted. Thank you. So I'm really enjoying this conference. It's such a lovely conference, and I'm glad that there are so many academics around the world are joining, and discussing their interesting conversation or discussing their interesting topic of research. So I'm going to share my some two of my research. One is from my PhD thesis, that is autoethnography on Tibetan Buddhism and feminism in an in-between space, and my recent publication on Porda that has been published by National University of Singapore. So I'm just going to discuss what type of strategies I have used to invoke a non-Western voice in feminist narrative. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint a little bit. So what I'm going to share in this presentation is what is autoethnography and why the autoethnography that I'm using is called creative critical autoethnography, and why it is image-based autoethnography. So what is autoethnography? I know, maybe many of you know about it, but just if some of you, haven't heard about it, that's why I'm telling. So autoethnography is a research method where a researcher uses his or her experiences to understand the wider social and political dynamic of the world. So I would tell that it emerged during the time when the knowledge actually moved to postmodern phase. So it is a kind of valuing individual narrative. And yes, it is questionable that how authentic an individual narrative can be to understand the wider social and political dynamic of the world. But as we all know, that the argument of the postmodernism is quite different. So individual narrative could be a way to understand the intimate experience a human being has in relation to the world and community and power. So I always, want to clear that when I talk about a non-Western, narrative, it is not about creating another binary identity or another binary category, but it is more about demystifying the hegemony of Western knowledge that has been used by the colonial power within the knowledge. And it includes deconstructing the subtle structures of power. And then I'm going to talk about how I have used non-Western narrative in my write-up, which which is taken from non-Western literature. Non-Western mean which didn't originate in Europe and United States. So I'd like to share the read. So Western colonial interest in the realm of knowledge production are sustained through hierarchy and superiority of Eurocentric ideas and presentation of others. As a result, there are authoritative forces maintaining Western intellectual lineages inherited from classical Greek and Roman realm. As Obioma observed, Western ways of producing knowledge, even the postmodern ones, cannot seem to accommodate African worldview. No wonder knowledge from Asia, Africa, and the global south, all that belong to subaltern and non-Western location, become either muted or suppressed, or devalued from a Western perspective through some unwritten rules and practices, just like many other style of indigenous writers in Australia, in New Zealand as well. This type of imperialism has been seen as the dominance of knowledge from global north over global south. In this intellectual imperialism, legitimacy and acceptability of knowledge are evaluated from Anglophone center, North American or British in origin, from the ranking of a journal reviewing writing on the basis of scholarly reference from the global north to academic communication with scholars from the global south. Often, this knowledge from the global north is considered to be the standard form, and the knowledge from the non-Western world remains as inferior or supplementary or in the periphery. I found this hegemonic paradigm nurtures some invisible rules. One's scholarly insights are judged on the basis of their connection to Eurocentric ideas and Western scholars, and one's expression are considered to be more accurate if they follow conventional and positivist rules of linearity, categorization, separation, and syllogism from classical Greek and Roman ways. Peng and Richards, 1999, explains the influence of Aristotelian logic in Western discourse, which prioritized a single claim, counter-argument, and negation of oppositional argument and linear solution. Aristotelian logic pursues a categorical syllogism based on deductive reasoning. An example of this classical logical syllogism is that all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is a mortal. In the Western intellectual tradition, Aristotelian logic plays a significant role in validating argument. The importance of this type of reasoning is immense in furthering the evolution of human discipline like science and law. However, the hegemony of this type of reasoning can also create an obstacle to other forms of reasoning and argument. Traditional Eastern intellectual tradition, for example, the Chinese dialectic style, are based on appreciation of the nature of reality that is holistic, fluid, dynamic, flexible, and full of contradiction. Here, answers are not found in either or odd terms. Here, two contradictory positions can coexist in harmony as a mutually connected. Similarly to Chinese ways, dialectic and dialogue in Indian intellectual thoughts are to transcend any dualistic position and claim. Unlike many Western philosophies, the mediative reason in Indian philosophical thoughts, including Buddhism and Hinduism, create a space for dispute and dialogue which does not move with logic alone. Stroud talks about a particular style of argument that is found in Indian Vedic text. It follows a particular argumentic style that is different from narrative used in a dominant Western argumentative discourse. In Indian multivalent ways, the point of argument is not for a propositional claim to be accepted or rejected. The argument and textual strategy lead to the mind of a reader to an experience to go beyond. The argument and textual strategy is to offer a transcendent and transformative approach to oneself and reality. For example, in Devi Gita, goddess is seen as a separate from the world. This separation lays on the basis for the master-servant relationship between goddess and her devotees. Again, goddess invites the souls to mediate on her feet to merge one's finite self with her infinite being. and experience a vast and infinite way of being. These playful aspects are siege on the readers in a way so that readers cannot reject a single claim and adopt another. Stroud believes that when a Western audience reads this narrative, they will either reject this contradiction as absurd or nonsensical or ponder the meaning in a new way. To give the meaning, readers needs to go beyond the search for a single claim in response to the question whether God and goddesses is separate or immanent in the world. In this pondering, reader will experience the multiple possibilities of going beyond the categorical way of thinking and will foresee a way of understanding reality beyond the border of binary judgment. Reader have to use the contemplative aspect of their mind for a new wisdom which they use for connecting with poetry, songs, and arts. They need to experience the fusion, merging, and conversation between nonverbal, non-conceptual, and analytical parts of the mind to get the meaning. The need to contemplate how contradiction and complements to unfold in a wider and a deeper meaning that is not comprehensible through a single claim or a straightforward reading, readers need to mediate on the meaning. When I start to write an autoethnography thesis on Tibetan Buddhism and feminism, my argument was naturally unfolding with the deep influence of these Eastern ways, because my argument was that researcher subjectivity is deeply related to her writing. Writing and her way of being are intimately connected and inseparable. It was not following the mainstream Western discourse expectation. A monologic reading based on an essential binary and conclusive reductionist view or a radical postmodern approach would overlook the intention behind this writing for invoking a non-dual relationship between the categories and fluidity of lives, and valuing creative possibilities for harmony among multiple positions and representation. However, if this writing is read with diffusional insight, with a simultaneous focus on individual voices, as well as their interdependent interaction for holistic meaning, this type of writing can offer a very engaging way of producing knowledge. I was lucky that my supervisor was aware of my struggle of this ambivalent in-between space that I was having in my research. Of course, we cannot reject the Western knowledge production completely. We are within it, and being within it, we are negotiating about our agency and freedom to write from our location. Seeing my efforts to grasp my voice at the same time to please the dominant academic demand, my supervisor suggested that I take up different strategies for writing a thesis and audit writing. I realized that how my doctoral writing was a part of my being. Autoethnography, where I could actually bring my experience, was extremely helpful to further the strategic politics. Autoethnography enabled me to enter a space where I could speak from multiplicity, heterogeneity, plurality, indeterminacy of meaning being a part of the research itself. But autoethnography was not enough to challenge the coloniality of knowledge that works in extremely subtle level of academia and suffocates spontaneity of voice from the non-Western world. While writing an autoethnography, I had to adopt epistemic disobedience to Eurocentric epistemologies that prioritize hierarchy, objectification, structure, and positivist modes of clarity. This type of epistemic disobedience was extremely risky for a doctoral student who was not a prominent academic. I was interested in post-colonial writers like Gayatri Spivak and Homi Bhabha, but found their epistemology and writing to be quite Western as well. Rather, I found the work of Mina Trinity T and Sean Wilson to be more challenging to Western positivist way of knowing and writing. I was aware that the risk might lead to a thesis to a place of alienation, but decided to go for it, for paving a new path for writing with non-Western voice and releasing psychic colonization. In expressing an epistemic disobedience for the purpose of invoking non-Western voice, I discovered the usefulness of performative writing. Performative way of writing values creative engagement through recognizing human complexity and its relation to ideas. Since 1960, performative writing has been used in the humanities and other disciplines to create interactive critical insights and to make alive the ways of knowing, writing, and interpreting that would otherwise be hidden in a conventional writing and its attempt at objectivity. According to Pelias, there is a difference between conventional writing and performative writing. Traditional writing is aimed towards advancing knowledge through argument and intellectual analysis. Performative writing also addresses intellectual question, but it seeks to answer to the intellectual question through connecting human emotion and intellect to scholarly ideas. Performative writing made my autoethnographic writing an artistic tool for expressing which invoke compassion and empathy in relation to personal experience. As a part of this process, the biological narrative in my thesis, as well as my other write-up as well, was written with the aid of personal photograph and arts. The images responded to my research quest for felt touch and embodied constitutions of knowledge through an intimate connection with the past. More importantly, they had performative and strategic use for collapsing text-centrism of Western epistemology. Edward Said tells that it is a fallacy to assume that the swarming, unpredictable, and problematic mess in which the lives of human beings live can be understood on the basis of what book texts say. Collapsing the dichotomy and categorization in text and discourse is a part of scholarly politics of challenging colonial authority. When the politics transgress text-centrism of Western epistemology's disciplinary boundaries and fixed categories meaning, it assumes a performative nature through creative critical pedagogical articulation. In terms of biological narrative, I was interested not only in the contents of the story but also in the ways stories are told. For that, I used Indian and Jain narrative as a non-Western style. In this Indian style of narrative, the patterns were not linear. They evolve through a circle. Unlike Western English narrative pursuance of a steady plot, Indian narrative allows a deliberate digression for opening up to a performivity and multiplicity. Obviously, like any other narrative, Indian and Jain narratives are heterogeneous as well, but I am referring to a particular narrative which follows a kind of nonlinear ways. From a Western perspective, this style lacks coherency and includes unnecessary talk. Margaret articulates how Jain literature differs from the style of conveying a message in Western discourse regarding presenting narrative with full of unexplained contradiction. These contradictions in Jain narrative are not given deliberately for muddying the concept, but to break the pattern-oriented and disciplinary thinking of mind. It is quite different from logocentric ways, the basis upon which Western thought has been structured since Plato. So now I would like to show that how I did that in my other write-up that has just been published by National University of Singapore, and it is on Porta, and how we could explore the heterogeneous aspects of Porta and how we could actually liberate the concept of Porta and women choice from linear narrative and logocentric way of understanding everything. Alright, so this is a part of the book chapter and where I use my own picture to show that women's choice of clothing is very much dependent on the context or location and the way the modesty has been interpreted. For that, I also used the autoethnography method, and I also used my own picture, which is image-based autoethnography. So, so I have used, this picture, the first one, this one is in Australia, where I'm using a Western cloth, and right after that, I am using a picture from Dhaka, where I'm covering myself because of the location. This is an example how I use this type of biographical narrative with image in my writing. A picture of myself taken in front of Baitul Mukarram National Mosque, the biggest mosque in Dhaka. I am wearing salwar kameez. This is how I practice porta in the roads of Dhaka, a male-dominated public space. I also used my own life journey because it is an autoethnography where we need to be, reflecting our location. So that's how I started to bring the location in my writing. I was born and brought up in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, one of the worst megacities for women today, especially for women from the lower and middle class who cannot afford a private car. As a middle class family, we are living in a rented house. My family did not have a private transport and had to use public transport for going to school and other places. Since childhood, I was used to wear clothes like skirt, tops, pant, and shirt. When I reached the age of puberty, my family insisted that I wear the salwar kameez and cover my chest with a scarf. Most of the other girls of my age, including my cousin, were wearing such cloth without complaint, and if I did not, I would had to face derogatory looks and the comments from the community, especially on the streets and the family gathering. Giving up the clothes I like and wearing salwar kameez seemed to me as giving up the freedom that I had. Slowly, I accepted that dressing as such was a requirement to find space in my family and community. My mother usually wears the same clothes or traditional sari. She covers her head for religious occasion and takes the veil off when the event is over. So that's how I was trying to invoke the fluidity of the concept of veiling. She also covers her head when she travels alone or uses public transport. My grandmother and great grandmother always covered their head with the free end of the shari. My paternal aunts wear the burqa and the niqab while going outside the house. Some of their daughters use the hijab or burqa to cover their head in public space, while others do not. I was taught to cover my head with dupatta only for religious reasons or any religious event. On other occasion, I was only expected to wear salwar kameez. The only demand for veiling was on covering the breast properly with the scarf, which I got used to while accessing public space. Outside of Bangladesh and during my time in Australia, I wore a Western style outfit every day for 1 year and a half. After I completed my master's program in Australia and returned to Bangladesh, I became extremely sensitive to people while traveling, shopping, and using public transport. This really affected my comfort, mobility, and interaction with strangers, and I started to wear extra clothing, covering my head with a dupatta to avoid male attention on the road. As a result, I found that I received respect from both strangers and the community as a whole. The unwanted attention disappeared to a great extent, and I walked relatively freely along crowded road. It facilitated my mobility and gave me more security and confidence. Every morning, to reach my workspace, a NGO working for women empowerment, I had to walk certain distance and wait for the office bus in a very crowded place. The place was full of local vendors, cheap restaurants, and countless office going male. The extra covering helped me to wait there freely. I used to take it off from my head when I reached office. Many of my female colleagues never covered their head with a dupatta like the way I did, even if they were in the streets. In my office, most women wear the salwar kameez, some women wore the hijab, and the few wore the burqa. This office, like many other NGOs or corporate or academic institution in Bangladesh, has a renowned image of Bangladeshi liberal model of work environment where women are more appreciated in their traditional Bengali clothing like salwar kameez or shari, less welcome in Western outfits like shirt and pants, and considered to be conservative in hijab or niqab or burqa or headscarf. This space is different from the streets of Dhaka. I went back to Australia for my PhD and remained there for more than 3 years. Again, I began to wear Western clothes. After returning to Bangladesh, I again started wearing salwar kameez, covering the head in the streets and unveiling it after reaching my destination, including office, restaurant, my house, yoga studio, and school. When Uber became popular in Dhaka, Uber taxi, I started using it more and more. It was more comfortable and accessible compared to three-wheel taxi in Dhaka. I was not required to walk in the streets to find an Uber. It would directly came to my house and pick me up. When I was inside the private taxi, I was less exposed to the crowd in the streets and I did not feel the need to cover my head. Having spent some years in Dhaka, I moved to Chittagong to work at a liberal arts university, Asian University for Women. Located in a city center with 800 students from 19 different countries, the university has a vibrant campus and an international faculty. As a consequence, many students and teachers are used to wear Western outfits. There is a facility for having university vans providing transportation for the teaching staff between their accommodation and the campus. Soon I began to wear Western clothes again. However, when I need to go to the local market or use public transport, I usually wear the salwar kameez. A conversation I once had with a male colleague of mine summarizing the strategic negotiation practice through porda at an individual level. In response to his comments, how women porda is essentialized as either oppression or identity of Muslim women, I raised the following issue. When I came to campus wearing Western clothes, I think twice before going out to some place outside the campus. In most of the cases, I decide not to go in fear of facing that unwanted male attention and gaze. Instead, when I am in salwar kameez with dupatta, I am happy to go out of the campus anytime. So the day I plan to go out of the campus, I usually wear salwar kameez or long dress with scarf. Which type of clothing has more power in facilitating my mobility and dignity in a male-dominated public space? As a Bangladeshi woman, my micropolitic reflected Foucault's way of seeing power, relational in the network and dynamic in nature. In this power play for accessing public space, the micropolitics of women's strategic negotiation is neither a unified advocacy nor a loud protest in the street. Instead, it is an individual strategy of disrupting hegemony of power relation from where the individual is situated. It challenges the hegemony, control, victimization, possessiveness, exclusion in a transformative non-violent way. This challenge does not stem from a supremacy or competitiveness, but from a desire for connection and belongingness. Bell Hook named this type of emotion as yearning, a spontaneous, intense longing to be connected, valued, and included. This politics shows that one can strategically negotiate within oppressive structure for greater freedom and mobility and find a space to deal with vulnerability and inconvenience in a male-dominated patriarchal society. In an in-between space of multiple meaning of operation and freedom and their non-binary relationship, Porta starts losing its fixed identification with the binary narrative between oppression and identity of a Muslim woman. So that is the creative, critical part of the autoethnography and the use of image there. And I would also like to show you that how I have used the conversation in my thesis. So which is a part of non-Western narrative as well. So this is my thesis thesis available online, and one of the section called Method of Madness. So you could see that here I didn't use a first person narrative. It's a conversation between my two self without any particular conclusion. So, we know in many Indian texts, the text is written as a part of conversation, like, and the two people who are engaged in the conversation, they are not separate, but they are, related to each other. So, So this is the, so when I was writing my thesis, I had this dilemma that whether I should use some new form of write-up in my thesis like fictive criticism, which was widely used in Australia. And so I have reflected this dilemma in my write-up instead of arguing in a very objective and linear way about the clarity of my purpose. This, like, my name is Sharin Shahjahan Naomi, so I have used my two names, Naomi and Sharin, to invoke a conversation about this dilemma and pros and cons of using fictive criticism. So my whole thesis is written in this way, like the research method and everything, except my biography. Everything is written in this way to pursue a non-Western narrative in the thesis. So, yeah. So this is the thesis. Okay. So what I wanted to argue at the end that non-Western knowledge is not only about creating another kind of binary, but it's more about demystifying the hegemony of Western knowledge and to make knowledge more non-colonizing, more inclusive, and giving voice to the diverse perspectives around the world. And use of autoethnography has helped me to write from that perspective and to make the writing more reflective and challenge binary way of thinking. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really an enlightening session. And especially from my side, I don't know, because I am not aware of the Bangladeshi culture, and you very well engrossed us, and it deeply, I could connect somehow with, being from India, and I could connect. Yes, of course, here also, women are in Parda, and I am not a Muslim girl, but yes, I can correlate with my friends very well when I talk to them how they feel in a Parda, and this is what I think is a need of the art to talk about ourselves, what being a female we really feel. This is a great platform to connect, and thank you so much, ma'am. So we will just take up few questions first, and then we can come back on the discussion. Uh, so we have first question from Lalita Sharma. She says, Dr. Naomi, do you know, do you think Parda as a weapon to face oppression? Lalita, I think you are there. If you want to ask some other question also, you can. Please unmute yourself and ask it personally.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Naomi, your presentation was really very fine. And being an Indian and a Rajasthani, I can relate to you because we also have the Parda system. And I also had the same feeling as you have, because when I used to go in a family function and all, I used to do Parda. And I also felt safe and secure, because if you are in some modern dress and if you are not having parda, or you are not wearing sari, then everybody is gazing you, and you are the point of attraction. But when you are in parda, you feel safe. But as you told that in this you also told that whenever you go to the public place or marketplace, you used to do that scarf and that hijab, whatever you used to have. uh, so I just want to have, what was your feeling exactly? Matlab, it was the means of challenging the operation, or it was just to save you from the patriarchal gauge? I just want to know your feelings exactly. Thank you.
Okay, I think for me, porta is a very heterogeneous. Like, so, it is used in a different context in a different way. Like porta for a woman in a Syrian refugee camp who was an ISS slave, and I have just come across, a story about a German woman who fled to Syria, become ISS member for them, and where they had to wear porta fully covered, which is very uncomfortable for them, and they themselves are not also very comfortable. I think we could very much equate that porta with oppressive tool, because it is without choice, women has no connection with that, and the feelings of comfortableness, which is the most important thing, that is missing there. But porta for the subcontinent, it's quite different, and that I wanted to argue that it is not only for the Muslim women, but also for all kinds of, women from all religion. It's related with the modesty as well. And if the women do an porta and find some space in the patriarchal, male-dominated space, then I would tell that she is negotiating with the patriarchal power structure, and for that we need to, apply Foucaultian method of seeing power, that it is neither objective nor subjective, but rather a fluid network of structure, where it is more about negotiation and how many conditions we are able to, grasp and manipulate. So for me, it gave me the mobility to, walk and stay away from house. It gave me a kind of social status that she's a good woman. And even if I am coming back home at night, since I'm covering, people think that, she's a good woman. And I found that it is helping me to bring more condition in my favor, and rather than losing the condition. So I know this argument is quite problematic because it is from the individual perspective, but and also I think the concept of power, how we see the concept of power, is very important. But it is also highly contextualized, who is doing, how it has been done, what she has got in return. So if we see our women leader in the political space, they also do a certain kind of porta or covering, and for that she also gains lots of respect from the people, and she also gets lots of power in return. So what she gets in return, that is very important, and whether it gives her a sense of comfortableness or a sense of empowerment, that is also very important. But what I want to argue as well, that we also need to connect the concept of empowerment with women's yearning for connection with the community. That how we women want to explore the concept of empowerment, whether it's in a very individualistic way without the connection of community, or it is in relation with the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have more questions? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Naomi, for your nice. And I would like to actually, it's not a question, it's just some comment. Okay, like as I'm from also Bangladesh, and I had very different, like relatives. Like my paternals, they don't, follow that much Parda, but my maternal relatives, they are so much in Parda or some other things. And but I was I never actually wear hijab or burqa, and I used to wear more like sleeveless or Western dress. So no one used to say anything because they saw me from my childhood like this way. But what happened when I became a grown-up girl? Then I found that wherever I go, people used to give me a dupatta or udna. Like, I mean, my father even. Okay, so I used to feel like, what's this? Like, why? So one section. Why I'm saying this, that maybe your relatives, my relatives, they find me as to them, I'm a kid, I'm an adorable girl, but when they are outside, the way they look at other girls, they want me, I mean, not to have that same kind of look from other people. Okay, so this actually happens. That why we actually impose the porda. And also, Nami, I think you are aware of a recent uh, our debate on parda in Bangladesh, that uh, burqa or parda, it's not our culture. We used to have I don't know, veil. We used to have veil, but not for the way now it's imposed on women. So and burqa, you can see that almost 70% or 80% Muslim women, they are wearing burqa, they are wearing hijab, and now there is actually argument that are we not actually losing our own culture, and are we not actually somehow it's a cultural aggression of Arab here? So what is your actually point of view about this one,
Thank
guys?
you, Safinurapa, for asking this question, because it is much required question. So and recently it is very important in the context of Bangladesh, because recently we just had this viral photo of a women wearing burqa playing cricket, and I know the whole Facebook viewers are divided into two groups, and one group is telling that this is not our culture. The other group is telling that, oh, you are so critical. Look, she's just a mother, and so, but what I felt, in Bangladesh, what is happening in my research, that there is an emergence of anti-feminist backlash, not only in Bangladesh, but also in subcontinent. The emergence of anti-feminist backlash is happening, backed by religion. So religion has been used to, go against feminist value or gender equality. So most of the what I found in my research in subcontinent, that there is a fault line or a line, or you could tell it red line, which is set up also by the masculine, toxic masculine or hegemonic masculine gaze or patriarchy, to accept a certain form of, what to say, certain form of clothing or expression of sexuality, or what to say, or certain kind of showing modesty. So when the women actually jump over that line, she has been subject to anti-feminist backlash. In Bangladesh it is much more conservative, Bangladesh, Pakistan, in comparison to India as well. So the fault line in Bangladesh, it is, that we know, all the Bangladeshi girls, we know that in general we have certain dress codes, like scarf is mandatory, and shari, we could wear shari, but we know that we are more preferred to wear long sleeve rather than sleeveless in general in a public space. So in recent year, what happened, that there is a tendency in the media or in the literature to come up with more open outfit, and that I have noticed that, like in my generation, when I was 17 or 18 years old, I never imagined any actress in the media or TV wearing sleeveless so easily. But nowadays it is quite normal. As a result, there is also a strong group that is emerging, and they could be categorized as an anti-feminist group. And among that group, there is a new conservative, and fundamentalist as well, who think that women are crossing that false line. For the fundamentalist, or I would say fundamentalist view, that for them the line, it's like the modesty related to religion, and for the other group, that is the line related to the culture. So as a result, there is a strong hatred or anger against very what to say, very open minded women or very independent women who choose to go for a kind of clothing which does not go with that fault line or the red line. So what happened in Partha, when first time the picture came up in Daily Star, and I saw the comments, the comment was not mostly about appreciating her, but it is more about, comparing and contrasting her with other girls. So she became a symbol or idealized image of women modesty in Bangladesh. So, and that happened from both of the group. from fundamentalist, conservative, new conservative, all kinds of groups. So as a result, then there was a counter backlash saying that this is not our culture. So diverse group of people, gathered together, and the question of porta actually came up. So in terms of porta, also I found that even many of my secular friends or who didn't fall into that fundamentalist group, they also are assuming like a new conservative image, telling that women should cover herself, there should be a modesty for that. So I think it is related to the anti-feminist backlash that was developing for last 5 or 10 years in response to women's high mobility or high empowerment or high expression of independence. So it is more related to the politics and and the power dynamics and the power contestations, um, rather than, I would say it's more about that power dynamic rather than religion.
Yeah, I found even that there are the two groups you were talking about. That one group is actually backlashing the woman that this is a symbol of oppression, and another group is saying that it's actually a symbol of modesty. So it's like I find sometimes that why these people who are liberal, who are believing in secularism, then why they are attacking this woman. So I think that most of the time they are attacked. Like feminism is a very very bad term in Bangladesh. Like feminists are bad women. Feminists are like sexual, frustrated. Sometimes it's like it's not a good term for the general people. So I find that the feminists, they are even if they are in modest way, I mean their clothing is modest, they somehow just not for covering hair, they are called that they are not good just for that. Okay, so I think that when they get chance to attack, I mean someone to pick this photo and then to attack that woman that wearing parda, it cannot be a symbol of freedom, cannot be a choice of your I mean my cloth is my choice, my body is my choice. It's not like that, because really it's not your choice, it's religious choice, and really a religious choice cannot be a choice of personal freedom. I mean there are some actual arguments going on like this, and I think that it's kind of they would say it from, as you said, that it's actually cultural hatred, or you can say that it's just all about the politics. Okay, so
Yeah, I found that it's more about the power dynamic, and it is
power
connected
dynamic,
with
yeah.
what happened beforehand. And it is also not a sporadic incident from the political dynamic of South Asia. Like we can't actually separate the feminist thing from the political economy.
Yeah, so that was just like even I found that there are from that one photo, I think many branches of people come out. I mean, many ideas come out. Like some are saying that yeah, she could cover head, but that burqa is more like Afghan. I mean, what happened to Afghanistan in Taliban times? So they're saying that it's actually symbol of the Taliban are actually ruling here like this. So yeah, that's really interesting that how people think either way or that way. Thank you, Nami, for your
Mhm.
good
Thank you,
explanation.
thank you for the comments and the discussion.
Now we have comments coming up from Mehrunisa Pathan ma'am. Ma'am, are you there? We would love to listen to your voice and you ask your questions and your comments, please. Mehrunisa ma'am, we are waiting for you.
I think you can ask on behalf of her, because I think she has problem with network. She's leaving sometimes and sometimes
Okay.
joining. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shubhra
no
ma'am,
issue.
please, you may ask those questions that I have posed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to listen to your sweet voice actually. Huh?
No, Shubhra ma'am, you can just pose them, okay, on my behalf. I think that would be
Yes.
better. Yeah, these are
Yeah,
some
sure.
of my observations. Yeah.
Yes. Fine. So, ma'am says that I think in this context we can refer to Mariam Jamila. Her excellent interview would make us have a better understanding. Anyhow, it's a personal choice, but in various religions, the parda system still exists. This is how one perceives it. Then she says, whether we follow it or not, but still we are fighting for equality and equality at the same time. True. Somehow, on the other issues such as global warming and pandemics and other issues are sidelined. This is what she has commented.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thanks for the comments.
yes, ma'am. So, any intake, Dr. Roshan?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Shireen, for your well presentation. I have a query related to feminism what is your opinion or a standpoint or an argument wearing a veil or hijab or scarf as a woman can be a feminist also, and without hijab as a modern Islamic Muslim also, a Muslim woman also can be a feminist. So what do you think about this hijab and veil with a feminist perspective as an individual or collective idea, or you take it as a religious or cultural subject as a woman if she wears a hijab, or you see as a feminist perspective because both are interlinked. As in Rajasthan, it's more cultural than religious, and in if we come to the Islamic perspective, it's very religious, right? So, what do I feel? There are very good feminists as well, and they wear hijab and scarf, uh, whether they uh, and they feel more comfortable in that also. So, what do you think in that?
Yes, so that is a very good question. Yes, so culture and religion is so, what to say, it's kind of messed up in South Asia. It's very difficult to actually understand where the culture ends, where the religion begin, where the religion ends, where the culture start. It's not in a very fixed category, and it is also depends area to area or geography to geography. So that is another issue, very heterogeneous. But what I say to some of my friends, and also my Facebook friends as well, that whether women had the choice of not doing so. For example, like women from middle class in Bangladesh, if we don't go outside without covering our head, there is no issue at all. Just people will look at us, and we can't take it. So, so we just wear it just to avoid the male attention. But so the choice of not doing is very, very important. That whether choice of doing so, that if I decided that I will not do it because of social pressure of exclusion. So I think the choice of not doing so is very, very important for us. That whether women had that choice of not doing so. If she had both the choices and she preferred to go for the first one of doing so, I would say that is real freedom of choice. So I think in that case, Martha Nussbaum's idea of freedom of choice could be important too. But we also need to unpack that what is the choice of not doing so. How we could actually explore that choice.
Right. It's very